quick heads up before we begin. This bonus episode revisits 3 conversations about sex, so it includes frank discussion about sexuality, shame, and intimacy that may not be suitable for young listeners. Parents, be aware. I want to offer you a completely free, no-catch gift, a downloadable ebook inspired by recent interviews on this podcast. Over 3 recent episodes, I had 3 conversations about sex. Not just the sex that happens in affairs, the sex that happens or doesn't happen everywhere else, in the messages you absorbed growing up, in the body you've lived in your whole life, in the marriage where you've never quite known how to say what you want. The first conversation was with Jocelyn Silva, a therapist and intimacy coach. We talked about sexual shame. The second was with Linda Landon, a life and intimacy coach, talking about sexual pleasure. And the third was with Xanet Pailet, a sex and intimacy coach, talking about reconnection after betrayal. I planned these 3 episodes as a series, so I, of course, expected them to fit together. What I didn't expect was how much their stories would have in common. 3 women, 3 very different experiences, 3 different bodies of work, and all 3 of them kept circling back to the same idea. The way back to good sex doesn't start with technique, and it doesn't start with your partner. It starts with telling the truth about yourself, about what you were taught, about what you actually feel, about what you've been performing instead of admitting. That's a hard place to start when trust has been broken. It's also, I think, the only beginning that allows for complete healing. So I went back through all 3 conversations and I pulled out what mattered most, the ideas, the moments, the practical shifts, and I put them together in something I want to give you. It's a free 25-page ebook called Good Sex: What 3 Conversations About Sex Revealed About Shame, Intimacy, and Reconnection After Infidelity. It's not a transcript. It's what these 3 conversations added up to. Where sexual shame comes from and what it costs you. Why pleasure is something you have to know in yourself before you can share it. What's really going on in the sexual chaos that follows discovery. The surge that some couples feel, the shutdown that others feel, and the comparison that haunts almost everyone. And at the end of the ebook, there's an exercise for couples. It's called 1 Week of Sex Talk. 3 new questions about sex to talk through together each day for 7 days. 21 questions, 1 week. If you and your partner have never found a way to have this conversation, this gives you a place to start and a reason to keep going. Here's where to get it. affairhealing.com/goodsex. That's all one word, good sex. No cost, no sign up, no catch. It's a free gift. The link is in the episode notes. Now for the rest of this episode, I want to give you a taste of each conversation. 3 excerpts, 1 from each guest. If you've already heard all 3 episodes, consider this a reminder of why they were worth your time. And if you haven't, this is your invitation to listen to the complete interviews.
Here is an excerpt of Tim's conversation with Jocelyn Silva.
And so, everything in my sexuality went underground. I'm not saying that that caused me to have an affair. I am saying that it got in the way of healthy intimacy in my marriage because neither of us understood how to really talk about it. We couldn't be open, authentic in that area. And it also meant that when I opened that door to another relationship, that part of the curiosity and exploration that I'd never felt free to explore before, like, okay, well, now I'm breaking the rules anyway, so I'm just going to go for it. And it was an added component to my being very much at risk. And by the way, I've talked to a lot of people that grew up very similar things, like a lot of guilt and shame behind it. They've never felt free to talk about it in their marriage or work things out in a healthy way. And so this great exploration in a forbidden relationship becomes exciting and wonderful.
By the way, I love what you said, and I just want to piggyback off of that and say 100%. I'm not saying that the shame that I grew up with is what caused the infidelity that I did later in life. What I'm saying is like the shame that I felt around my sexuality did not set me up to learn how to speak truth in relationships and build intimacy in that way. It actually did the opposite, where I was like, oh, I learned that if I'm ashamed of something, I need to hide it. I need to do it behind people's back. Okay, so I need to do this thing behind people's back and not talk about it, because sitting in the discomfort of someone's, sadness, disappointment, anger was too much. So let me just do this thing that you don't know about, and we're all going to be happy. My life blew up. I hit rock bottom. When my spouse caught me cheating, it was an awful time for me. Like, I got into a depression. I was put into a 5150 for suicidal watch. Like, I hated myself. I didn't want to live. And so when I got into program and started working through the steps of the program, I realized that I was cheating because I had no spiritual guidance. In a lot of ways, sex and other people became my higher power. That was the only thing that was giving me fulfillment. And I could never get enough of it. I wanted more, I wanted more, I wanted more, right? And I betrayed myself a lot to get that. It's like, let me keep everyone around me happy. I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. I'm going to do what I need to do so that I'm okay, because if not, I'm going to fall apart because I have nothing to sustain me. So when I got into program, I learned, well, what does my life look like if I didn't have sex and love? What would my life look like if I was a person of integrity and I spoke my truth and I was honest with myself and others? And that was scary, because doing that meant I needed to confront a lot of, again, uncomfortable situations. I think in a lot of ways I was an avoidant, when I was cheating. I was avoiding hard conversations. I was avoiding disappointing others. I was avoiding my true desires so that everyone around me could be happy. And now I've really learned that all the magic and the gifts are in those uncomfortable situations, are in sitting in the discomfort of someone's disappointment, of being honest, even if it's going to hurt another person's feelings. Because like I said, at the end of the day, that will always build trust. So really, I think what it was for me is like, I want to be able to put my head on the pillow every night and love the way that I feel about myself, because I know that in my heart, I'm being honest with myself and other people.
Here's an excerpt of Tim's conversation with Linda Landon.
We kind of touched on this earlier, but let's think about it in the context of an affair. Your approach centers on each person on their own, focusing on the pleasure, starting with that rather than performing for the other person. After an affair, both partners often feel under enormous pressure to prove themselves to their partner. In this context, talk about the benefit of moving towards genuine personal pleasure rather than performing to try to prove something. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think part of this is just another conversation where we start to talk about what sex has been like in the past. What have your expectations been around sex? We talk about performative sex. I don't want to give them the answers. I want them to find their own answers. And we talk about, how did that work for you? And then what would it be like to come together and just let go of any goals or expectations about where this is going to go or what's going to happen?
Yeah. Linda, I don't want to minimize the difficulty for any couple to kind of work through the whole mess of infidelity, and especially how that impacts their intimate connection and sexual connection with each other. But I also want to raise the possibility of hope that what they can learn and how they can grow through even this painful, difficult experience may, on the other end, provide an opportunity for them to experience even the kind of sexual connection and pleasure with each other that has either never shown up in their marriage or has been missing for a very, very long time.
Absolutely. And that is what's possible. That's what I write about in the book. It's like, I have lots of stories of different couples who've had complete hopelessness, that they really were sure that it was all over. And so I will share a couple story. I will share something with them to give them hope. Like, I'm thinking of Josh and Emily in my book, who he was late 60s, she's early 70s, and they really thought that was over for them. And after working together for a number of months, they started to tap into levels of pleasure and intimacy that they had never even known was possible. And they started inventing like pleasure practices and ways to get together. And I mean, they became like teenagers. And it's possible.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. And I don't know for each couple I work with where it's going to go. And what I tell them is that you have to do the work. I can't fix this for you. I'm your guide. I have suggestions. I will follow the thread of where you're going, but you have to be willing to do the work.
And here's an excerpt of Tim's conversation with Xanet Pailet.
Let's talk to that couple that's pretty good at trying to work through their relationship stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They've talked about things. They generally care for each other. They want their relationship to work. But this whole thing of sex has always been maybe because of shame. They've never figured out how to work out. So neither of them is satisfied in that area. And they're ready. I mean, they're pretty good together, but they don't know, how do we make this better? Where do you take them? What do you do?
I start by slowing everything down, because generally sex moves too fast. There's a lot of power in the quiet moments of connection with each other. So I like to really slow everything down. I like to get them to start to feel what an erotic connection looks like between each other. And that may be by helping them experience different ways of touching each other. It could be like, I worked with a couple this morning, just like having them be in a melting hug for 5 minutes, right? Which nobody does, but allows both of your bodies, your nervous systems to find each other, to feel that safety, to slow down. And that's what they said to me, like, we've never done anything like this before. It really allowed us to slow down and feel our bodies. So that's a huge piece, because a lot of times we're not in our bodies, we're up in our heads. Like, we're worrying about, what do we do next? Is my partner liking this? Like, what's next on my checklist to get him or her to where they want to be, as opposed to actually being in our body and experiencing the sensations of what it's like for two bodies to be touching.
Yeah, I mean, what you just described, I think a lot of times is like, okay, the success of this is orgasm. So how do we get there? And am I getting my partner there? Am I going to get there? And it's all that in your head stuff. And so you're talking about slowing that down, paying attention to the connection, sensations in the moment. It doesn't have, sometimes maybe it's not even about the orgasm.
Right. Taking all those expectations. And a lot of times the reason they're struggling is because there's all these expectations and there's obligations. Like, she feels pressure to have an orgasm. He feels pressure to bring her to orgasm. He feels pressure to perform, but he's having erection issues, like all this stuff, right? And they just are missing the actual moment of connection and being in their bodies and noticing, what does it feel like when our bodies are touching, and what are the sensations, and how do I want to be touched? Not necessarily sexually, but there's lots of different ways to feel sensations, and starting to understand what feels good for me, and then having some words to explain to my partner what I want. For each of us to have some words, because most of the time we just expect our partner to know our bodies, and that usually is not that successful.
There you go. 3 conversations. 3 women who each had to find their own way back to honesty about sex before anything else could change. If any of this landed on something you've been experiencing, go get the ebook. It's free, and it ends with a week's worth of questions you and your partner can actually use. affairhealing.com/goodsex. The link is in the episode notes. Whatever you're working through right now, I hope you'll keep choosing honesty and authenticity. They may be slower than the alternatives, but they will actually lead you to healing and change.